One day, the new gate became a death game, making it impossible for players to log out, and our protagonist Shin kept fighting to beat the game. We then see Shin leaving to fight the final boss of the game, and his friends ask him to take care of himself. Afterward, Shin fights the final boss and tries to take its head, but the final boss dodges, and Shin only manages to cut off its wing. The boss then regenerates its wing, and Shin keeps on attacking. After a long battle, he chips down almost all of its HP and takes out the final boss with one of his skills. He then hears an announcement telling him that the dungeon has been cleared and that players can now log out. Shin is happy that it's finally over and uses a scroll to check if everyone is able to log out. He notices the names of players disappearing from the scroll, and one by one, all players log out, leaving him as the only one left. He then tries to log out as well, but notices a gate appearing behind him and wonders why there are still events happening in the game. Afterwards, Shin opens his eyes in a grassland and realizes that this place looks far too realistic to be a game. He checks the menu and notices he can still pull up game windows. He finds out his stats have improved significantly, likely because he defeated the final boss. He tries to log out now that he has beaten the game, but the logout option is gone. He also checks if anyone else is online, but the scroll doesn't work since he is not connected to the network. He thinks he shouldn't even be able to move if he's not connected and begins to wonder if this is reality. Unable to understand anything, he uses an item to locate his home base. On the way there, he notices a giant walled city that wasn't present before. Eventually, he arrives at his house and finds some guys trying to drag a girl away from it. As soon as they get her out of the barrier surrounding the house, a monster attacks them. The guys flee, leaving the girl behind, and she believes she's going to be killed. But Shin saves her and tells her he is home. The two of them talk inside the house, and the girl introduces herself as Tiara Lucent. She thanks Shin for saving her and asks if he knows her master. Shin doesn't know what she is talking about, but Tiara mentions that everyone knows the acting shopkeeper of the Moon Sanctum, named Schnee Rizar. Shin remembers that Schnee was one of his support characters, and is surprised that the Moon Sanctum still exists. He confirms with Tiara that they're talking about the same person, and tells her that he and Schnee go way back. He wonders where she is now, but Tiara says she can't share this information since they only just met, and those guys outside were also after her. She says she can take a message for Schnee, but it will cost him 1,000 jewels. Shin replies that he only has jails and shows her a jail coin. Tiara wonders if he just took it out of an item box and notes that only kings and elders of limited species can use them. She explains that gold jail coins are used to amplify magic and are worth at least 10 billion jewels. Shin thinks back to the game, where jails were the smallest currency. Tiara then asks who he is, and Shin simply states that he is a high human. Tiara is shocked and says the high humans went extinct long ago. She explains that there were once 6 high humans in this world, but they vanished during the dusk of prosperity 500 years ago. Shin wonders what that is, and Tiara explains that it was a historical event where many people disappeared, including the high humans. Shin realizes she must be talking about the mass logout event, and understands that this world is now 500 years after the game ended. He thanks her for the information and gives her the jail coin. Tiara is hesitant to accept it and asks if he won't take it back, but Shin assures her he won't. She is delighted to hold the jail coin, and Shin notes it should be useful for her since elves use magic. Tiara asks if she looks like an elf to him, and Shin says she does. Tiara is surprised because her master even cast an illusion spell on her. Shin wonders why she would need to do that, and Tiara explains that black-haired elves are considered a symbol of misfortune. Because of this, monsters often attacked her, and her village exiled her. Her master rescued her and placed a barrier around the house, where she has lived for over a century. Shin realizes she was attacked earlier because of her curse, and wonders if it can be removed. Tiara says her master is researching a way, but she's fine living inside the barrier if it means not bothering anyone. Shin asks if her hair was always black, and she says it used to be silver until the curse turned it black. Shin analyzes her and finds that she has a cursed title called Cursed Gift, which causes her hair to be black and attracts monsters. He tells her the curse can be removed and uses his Purify skill. The curse is partially lifted, turning some of her hair back to silver. Tiara is overjoyed to see her silver hair again and can't believe the curse has been lifted. Shin suggests she try stepping outside the barrier. She hesitates, but Shin assures her that he'll defeat any monsters that appear. They walk outside the barrier, and no monsters attack. Tiara is glad her curse is gone and is amazed at how big the sky is. They return to the Moon Sanctum, and Tiara thanks Shin for everything. She asks what he plans to do now, since her master won't return for a while. while. Shin says he'll check the nearby town to learn more about this world, and hopes his other support characters may be here too. Tiara gives him a letter of introduction to help him enter the Berwick Kingdom without standing in line for inspection. Shin asks if she's sure about giving it to someone she just met, and she says it's fine because he lifted her curse and seems trustworthy. She promises to inform him when her master returns. Shin travels to Berwick, and a soldier escorts him inside upon seeing the letter. The soldier explains that these letters act as identification and can even grant audiences with royalty. Shin goes to the Adventurers Guild to gather information. He tells the receptionist he wants to register and is directed to the first floor. There, he meets another receptionist who looks exactly like the first. She is her twin sister Silica, and the other is Celica. Silica asks Shin to fill out the registration form and pay the fee. Later, we see Shin at a tavern connected to the guild, surprised that making a guild card takes a whole day. Silica brings him food and stares at him. Shin asks if she needs something, and she asks to verify his letter of introduction. Shin agrees, but doesn't want to meet the guildmaster so soon. Silica tells him it's too late. The guildmaster is already behind him. The scene cuts to Shin talking with the guildmaster, Barlux Hein. Barlux asks to see the letter and places another letter on top of it. They start to glow, and Shin is surprised. Barlux explains that genuine letters resonate this way. He asks who gave the letter, and Shin says it was Tiara. Barlux assumes something major happened if she forgot to explain how the letters work. He further explains that the letters allow entrance to most nations without inspection. Later, Shin is at an inn and reflects on the rough day, resolving to raise his rank tomorrow. The next day, he gets his guild card, now dressed more appropriately. Celica explains the ranks from SS to G, and Shin is starting at rank G. She explains he can take quests up to 2 ranks above. Shin chooses to harvest HK grass and leaves. Celica notes that Shin is strange. He's skilled enough to be recognized by Barlux, but doesn't seem intimidating. In the forest, Shin struggles to find hillgrass, even after 3 hours, but notes the monsters are weak, giving him time. He notices a monster behaving strangely on his map and investigates. It's a skull-faced jack at level 359, which had just attacked a wagon. Shin recalls the guild talking about this problem monster and decides to act. He attacks, but the monster parries everything. Noting its light-type weapon, Shin deduces it's a unique monster, unusual for an undead. He fights back, but his sword is nearly broken. Disabling his limiters, he defeats the skullface with a single blow. The sword flies off and lands in a castle room, startling onlookers. Princess Ryan orders an appraisal to determine its origin, suspecting the thrower must be incredibly strong. Meanwhile, Shin casually shows the monster's core at the guild, shocking everyone. Elle appears and examines the gem, while Celica privately serves Shin. A mysterious man named Wilhelm, feared for his drain ability weapon, joins Shin. After eating, Shin heads to the library to research the Dusk of Prosperity. Simultaneously, a high-level meeting discusses the mysterious sword and Shin's strength. Shin meets a girl named Mill and shares food with her before Wilhelm from the orphanage takes her back. Mill randomly asks Shin to save someone in the northern woods. Before leaving, Shin visits Tiara to leave a message for Schnee. He shows her the sword, which she recognizes as Schnee's, made of rare monster materials. Tiara is used to Shin bringing legendary items. Shin gives her a message receipt to help deliver messages. He travels to the northern woods and finds a shrine with a baby fox inside a barrier. He purifies it from poison and a curse, but soldiers surround him. He defeats them and their boss. The fox uses its fox scream to assist, and Shin defeats the boss. He finds the fox is a rare elemental beast and makes it his partner. At that moment, Shin receives a letter from Tiara that Schnee has returned, ending our 2 episodes. Rio wakes up surrounded by clouds, standing before an angel. The angel begins by telling him that he has recently died, yet he won't be heading to the afterlife just yet. In short, Rio has become the latest victim of the infamous truck. Now it's up to Michael to send him off to a new world to begin a fresh life. According to Michael, Rio won't be given any special mission or grand objective in this new world. He's free to live as he pleases. When Rio expresses his desire for a peaceful and laid-back life, Michael has no objections. But before sending him off, Michael needs to give Rio a quick overview of the world he'll be reincarnated into. The world is called Phi, a magical land where about 20% of the population can use spells tied to their natural elemental affinity. In Rio's case, his strongest affinity is with the water element. Since Rio asked for a peaceful and laid-back life, Michael went ahead and prepared a cozy little house for him. As a starter kit, he included 2 tutorial books, a knife, and even placed a protective barrier around the house to keep monsters at bay. As part of his beginner's kit, Michael has provided Rio with an ice house stocked with enough food to last 2 months, ensuring he won't face hunger anytime soon. Additionally, Michael included a guidebook containing detailed information on every monster Rio might come across in the region. While this will be useful for dealing with the forest's creatures later, Rio's current focus is on testing out his newfound magical abilities. He steps outside and shouts the spell, "Water, water, come forth," which instantly forms a sphere of water in his hand. Magic turns out to be much simpler than he imagined. Even more surprising, he can cast the same spell just by visualizing the water ball. So, saying the incantation isn't actually required. Now that he's confirmed he can use magic, he heads straight to the bathhouse and begins filling the tub with water. However, he quickly notices a problem. He only knows how to produce water, and there's no way he's going to enjoy a bath that isn't hot. So, he goes outside and tries to build a fire to heat the water manually. The only issue is he has no clue how to start a fire this way. After a while, he gives up and lies on his back in defeat. But as he stares up at the sun, an idea hits him. Rio grabs a basin, fills it with water, and begins focusing on it, trying to compress it while drawing out the heat. Slowly, ice starts to form. With a bit more effort and practice, he manages to shape the ice into a makeshift magnifying glass. Using it, he harnesses the sunlight to start a fire. With the fire finally going, he heats up his bath, which was filled with ice water. By the end of his first day, he's finally able to unwind and enjoy a proper soak. Now that he's mastered making ice, Rio realizes the opposite should also be possible. If he can remove heat to freeze water, he should be able to add heat to create warm water. This becomes his next goal, something he'll need to practice in the coming days. The following morning, as Rio eats breakfast, he starts to think. With only 2 months' supply of food from Michael, he knows he'll need to hunt soon to restock. But he doubts a mere knife will be enough to fend off the forest monsters. So, he resolves to begin practicing his attack magic. His first attempt is launching a water ball at a tree, and it works exactly as he imagined. But a small splash of water won't do much in a real fight. He remembers a way to increase the water's force, so he gathers another ball, this time compressing the water into a focused point for more pressure. The idea is sound, but his control isn't strong enough yet. His water jet barely has more power than a toy water gun. Rio recalls something Michael mentioned before his reincarnation. Magic relies heavily on imagination. The clearer the image in his mind, the better the result, and he just needs to keep refining it through practice. After several days of non-stop training, Rio's water jets are starting to take shape and look decent. However, they're still far from powerful enough to take down a monster. Rio has also figured out how to produce hot water, allowing him to enjoy warm baths whenever he likes. However, he's still working on fine-tuning the temperature, as his control isn't quite perfect yet. The next morning, he decides to practice his ice magic once more. This time, he attempts to conjure ice directly from the air, though it's difficult and takes nearly 3 minutes to form. He finally succeeds in creating ice out of nothing. However, unlike water, he struggles to launch it with the same ease. Combat training hasn't been going too well so far. None of the spells Rio has come up with have had much impact. Still, he spends the next few hours pushing himself, practicing non-stop until he finally collapses from mana depletion. Figuring he's reached his limit for the day, he calls it quits. But the very next morning, as soon as his mana is fully restored, he jumps right back into training. This routine becomes Rio's daily life over the next few weeks. Thanks to all his hard work, he can now create ice instantly, making it a reliable offensive spell. With his new set of attack magic finally ready and his food supply starting to run out, Rio ventures into the forest for the first time to begin hunting. He quickly notices a set of animal tracks and decides to follow them, which leads him to a nearby river. While exploring the area, he comes across some quartz by the riverside, something he can use to start fires by striking it against the edge of his sword. He also takes the opportunity to collect some detox herbs, just in case he needs them later. But suddenly, a deep growl rumbles from behind him. When he turns around, he finds himself face to face with a lesser boar, and he freezes in place. The boar charges at Rio, but this is his first life or death battle, so he panics. At the last possible second, he snaps to his senses and leaps sideways, barely dodging the beast's rush. However, the boar isn't finished. It turns, ready to attack again. Luckily, Rio's mind clears just in time. As the boar charges toward him, he swiftly creates an icy path beneath its hooves, causing it to slip. Without wasting a moment, he summons several sharp ice spikes directly in the boar's path, stabbing it and killing it instantly. After butchering the boar, Rio pulls out the monster guidebook to learn more about it. According to the book, The lesser boar is actually the weakest monster found in that forest. The guide itself is clearly intended for beginners, so most of the listed creatures are fairly simple. However, toward the end of the book, Rio notices 2 additional pages that stand out. They look like they might contain something important. One of the pages describes dragons, immensely powerful creatures capable of wiping out entire cities by themselves. The guide strongly advises fleeing immediately if he ever comes across one, as fighting it would be hopeless. That said, outrunning a dragon isn't likely either, so running into one is game over. Another page mentions mysterious beings called Akuma, apparently a type of fallen angel. However, the book offers very little information about them. The book's only advice is simple. If you ever encounter one, you're as good as dead. The following day, Rio heads out to hunt again, but while his guard is down, a giant assassin hawk swoops down from above and launches a surprise attack. The creature uses wind magic to slice through its prey with razor-sharp slashes. Rio has no choice but to run, quickly summoning ice shields to block the incoming blades of wind. He knows hawks are extremely dangerous opponents and would rather avoid a fight, but escaping isn't an option. That means his only choice now is to stand his ground and fight back. He lifts his hand and launches a stream of water jets, but the hawk skillfully evades the attack and dives at him, using wind magic to strike. Rio, however, reacts just in time, forming an ice shield that cuts the hawk across the eye and sends it crashing into the ground. Moments later, the hawk regains consciousness. Though it has permanently lost one eye, it takes to the skies to retreat. But before disappearing, it locks eyes with Rio one last time, etching his face into memory, because now it's personal. Rio lets out a sigh of relief, grateful to have made it out alive. Still, this is far from the peaceful life he had imagined for himself. During the chase with the hawk, he ran so deep into the forest that he ended up completely lost, wandering until well into the night. As he searches for a way back home, he unexpectedly stumbles upon a glowing lake. Right in the middle of it stands a Dullahan, and from the looks of it, the creature has already noticed him. Over time, Rio hones his skills through relentless training, mastering the art of hunting and preserving food with little difficulty. His water magic has grown significantly more powerful. He can now conjure razor-sharp ice sheets and slam them down in an instant. Even his water jets have reached new heights, slicing effortlessly through solid stone. At this point, his combat prowess has become formidable. However, ice magic isn't the only thing Rio has been practicing. Ever since his encounter with the Dullahan, he's ventured into the forest each night to battle it. Strangely, the monster guidebook never mentioned Dullahans. Either they aren't classified as monsters or they're too advanced for a beginner's manual. Regardless, Rio remains determined to face it. He rushes in with his ice staff and starts swinging, treating the encounter more like a training session than a real battle. After all, the Dullahan completely outmatches him in both power and technique. Rio does his best to defend himself, summoning ice shields to block the incoming blows. But despite his efforts, he's quickly overwhelmed and brought down within seconds. Though the Dullahan has never spoken a single word to him, Rio can't shake the feeling that it's taken on the role of a mentor, trying to mold him into something stronger. Suddenly, the Dullahan lifts its sword and channels water magic to lengthen the blade. Rio is taken back to discover that it can use water magic too. After showing him how the technique works, the Dullahan hands the sword over to Rio and calmly steps out onto the lake. One day, while Rio is out hunting, he is ambushed by the same assassin hawk from their previous encounter. He doesn't remember it being black before. It must have evolved, pushing itself to grow stronger just for this moment of vengeance. The hawk swoops down at Rio, unleashing a barrage of wind slashes. In response, Rio quickly conjures 5 layers of ice walls for protection. But now that the hawk has evolved, its wind attacks are far more powerful, strong enough to shatter all of Rio's defenses in an instant. And now, a wave of anxiety begins to creep over him. Rio sprints across the field, throwing up ice walls to shield himself from incoming strikes. When he spots an opening, he fires back with a volley of ice spikes, but the hawk easily evades them, surging forward with a sudden burst of speed. And that's not the only surprise it has in store. The hawk lets out a piercing screech at a frequency that disrupts Rio's magic, causing his ice shields to vanish and leaving him nearly unprotected. But the hawk isn't finished yet. It hovers menacingly in front of him, and Rio senses that a major attack is coming, though he can't predict when. Moments later, Rio can feel electricity in the air as a bolt of lightning is shot straight at him, and an attack like that would have been fatal. But luckily, He was able to use a stick as a lightning rod and jump away to save himself. As Rio struggles to shake off the lingering shock, the hawk swoops down, aiming to deliver a fatal strike with its sharp claws. At the last moment, Rio summons his ice blade and deflects the attack. They exchange several more blows, but Rio remembers his intense training with the Dullahan, so he spots an opening in the hawk's guard and drives his sword straight through its neck. As the hawk crashes to the ground, Rio slowly walks toward it, feeling a sense of understanding. He knows what it's like. The hawk lost an eye because of him, and ever since it's been driven by the need to prove it was stronger, pushing itself to evolve. But Rio has also been working hard to grow stronger, and in the end, despite everything, the hawk was still defeated. Afterward, Rio starts making his way home, but to his complete surprise, a dragon suddenly appears before him. Remembering what the book said about dragons being unbeatable, he's convinced this is the end for him. But to his surprise, the dragon speaks to him through telepathy. It doesn't seem aggressive at all. In fact, it explains that it's just passing through, searching for a black hawk that passed through the area. The dragon simply wants to know if Rio has seen it nearby. Relieved that the dragon isn't hostile, Rio quickly realizes it must be referring to the hawk he just defeated. Nervously, he apologizes and explains that the hawk attacked him first, leaving him no choice but to fight back and end its life. The dragon is in shock that a human like Rio was able to defeat a hawk, though he doesn't appear particularly bothered by it. What really catches his attention is the sword Rio carries. He immediately recognizes it as the Fairy King's blade. For the Fairy King to entrust such a weapon to a mere boy, Rio must have done something to earn his favor. The dragon has grown fond of Rio, and Rio, still lacking much knowledge about this world, was hoping to ask him some questions. The two end up chatting for several hours well into the evening, but their conversation is eventually interrupted as the dragon says he must return home. Rio expresses his gratitude for the dragon's answers, and the dragon thanks him in return, saying it's been a long time since he's had such an engaging conversation. They part ways with a warm farewell. But meanwhile, up in heaven, Michael is going over the documents related to Rio's reincarnation when he suddenly spots something he had previously overlooked. It turns out Rio was granted a hidden trait, something Michael hasn't seen since he sent a girl to that world 10,000 years ago. In Rio's case, the trait is eternal youth, and Michael finds it rather unusual. That was the first episode. Subscribe to not miss the next part, and watch the next video.